Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and there has been a lot of rumors lately that China might be trying to go to war with the United States technologically. Now, we know China is one of the biggest technocratic grids in the world, and we know much of the world has been trying to build on that form of technocracy. In fact, possibly trying to prop up China as the world superpower, utilizing their facial recognition, their surveillance technologies, their social credit, etc. We're going to go into that and more today, but obviously there was what a lot of people said might have been a DDoS attack on the internet in the United States, generally speaking, which is a crazy thing to say. About a week or so ago, as this article out of Forbes says, T-Mobile, Fortnite, Instagram, Comcast, and Chase Bank have all experienced outages. Some believe the U.S. has been hit by a large-scale DDoS attack. Others are skeptical, and now this plays into something else that has been on my radar lately, and this article came out today as I speak out of The Sun. It says, blackout, China plotting Pearl Harbor-style surprise EMP attack on U.S. that would kill hundreds of millions, expert claims. And a lot of medias are talking about this, including The Hill right now. And before we get into this, I want everyone to make sure to hit that like button, check the links below, share this on social media, join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com. And most importantly, my friends, other than donating and helping keep independent media alive, join us on flote.app as well as BitChute. Link below. We are not going to be on YouTube much longer because we're either going to be taken down by YouTube or we're going to walk away from YouTube, and I think the latter is the better, and I'll be announcing something on that very shortly, but you know where to find us, my friends. Anyway, let's get into this news. As I mentioned before out of The Sun, it says that China is plotting Pearl Harbor-style surprise EMP attack on U.S. that would kill hundreds of millions, expert claims. Now, of course, that's fear-mongering propaganda, but there might be a lot of truth to it at the same time. And the key word is Pearl Harbor. I mean, it's interesting they mention Pearl Harbor because Pearl Harbor, as many of you might know, was allowed to happen. It was given the right of way, essentially. Generals knew that Pearl Harbor was about to be attacked, but they were doing deficit spending. They wanted to prop up their economy. They wanted to go to war. They allowed it to happen. It resulted in untold amounts of people dying. And that, so is the story of the United States government and many governments around the world, is that they want chaos because they can get order out of chaos. And we're going to go into that more in a moment. But first, let's go into the actual article. As it says, China may be plotting to use an electromagnetic pulse weapon that would plunge the U.S. into darkness and kill hundreds of millions, a new report has warned. Campaign group the Emp Task Force on Homeland and National Security released the paper which details the threat that it warns could come in the form of a nuclear strike from space. As it continues here, it says Task Force Executive Director Dr. Peter Pry penned the report, first released on June 10th, which warns of a possible Pearl Harbor-style preemptive strike in a confrontation between the U.S. and China. It comes as relations between the two powers remain frosty amid the coronavirus pandemic, which President Donald Trump continues to blame on China. The frostiness of their relationship, my friends, is subjective at best because there's a lot of evidence that the U.S. and China work together to create this crisis, and it's a fake argument, a fake fight, a fake coalition, I guess you could say, between the two countries. And again, we'll go into that further in a moment as well. As the article continues, EMPs use low-yield nuclear weapons detonated in the atmosphere to create a wave of energy that fries electronic equipment and may knock out the power grid. With no power, the nation would be plunged into chaos, which could lead to rioting and famine, potentially killing millions. Wait, I thought the government liked rioting and famine. I mean, they put breaks in place so people would riot and misdirect, anti-government protests into racial wars, all while pushing the shutdown, which is leading to millions and millions of impoverished people that cannot feed their family. I thought the government liked that. Maybe I'm wrong. I just, by their own actions, it appears that they'd like that. Anyway, continuing on, Dr. Pry, who was chief of staff on the Congressional EMP Commission, is calling on the White House to do more to protect the power grid and other critical infrastructure. The expert also worked as an advisor to the House Armed Services Committee and is a former intelligence officer with the CIA. The EMP Task Force on Homeland and National Security is a non-governmental organization dedicated to raising awareness of the threat posed by such weapons. Writing in the report, China, EMP Threat, Dr. Pry warns he believes a high-altitude EMP is the most likely kind of future warfare. The report lays out suggestions that China have been preparing for such a strike for many years so it can use a capability alongside cyber attacks. The task force describes itself as an organization of citizen engineers, field experts, and others, all united in our concern for the American people. On its website, it describes the threat of the U.S. power grid crashing as very real. Well, the U.S. power grid is like 60, 70 years out of date to begin with, so it won't be difficult to crash that. Continue on, it says the organization warns up to 90% of Americans would die within the first year if it went down, a total of 295 million people. Well, that assumes that you don't fix this situation and have your own alternative grids. But of course, the government doesn't want you being independent, doesn't want you being self-sustainable, doesn't want you preparing for such things. They want you to be dependent, and I think that plays into this very much as well. As it continues, it says, Dr. Pry warns recent Chinese cyber attacks should be regarded as possible practice or preparation for total information warfare, including nuclear hemp attack, HEMP attack. China has super EMP weapons which are based on designs stolen from the U.S., a report claims. I'm pretty sure the U.S. gets a lot of their designs from China to begin with. I do want to point out that this is an interesting story to be popping up right now, considering, and as I've claimed before, Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s to create an alliance with China, which propped up an artificial monopoly in favor of China, which led to so much. I mean, they'd already killed tens of millions of people, Mao Zedong, but it really helped prop up China as a global superpower competitively. A lot of countries were previously afraid of China, and this led into an alliance with the United States, which turned into the Trilateral Commission under Zbigniew Brzezinski during the Jimmy Carter administration. Of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski said he wanted to see a technocratic superstate. He talked all the time about his dream of a technocratic world order, and China was the perfect test ground for that. And using the subservience of the people of China, which, by the way, there's a subservience in Hollywood, there's subservience in the media, there's subservience all across the board with China. You cannot say bad things about China in the mainstream anymore because a lot of these guys have monetary goals that rely on China. And China really does dictate a lot of what's said in Hollywood, what's said in the media, what a lot of companies do. They don't want to say anything bad about China because they'll lose insane amounts of money. But again, this technocracy is built up in China as a perfect testing ground. Then you have, social credit. So people say something bad about the government, say they do it on Facebook in the U.S.'s case, and they get a low social credit score, which says that they can't eat at restaurants, they can't go out. If they don't get vaccinated, they can't get a high social credit score, so they can't go out, they can't travel, they can't leave the country, they can't go to public spaces. And then tie in, what we're seeing with ID 2020 in the United States and elsewhere. I mean, it's a perfect storm to really grow a Chinese-style global grid. And I mean, again, the IMF talked years ago about putting their headquarters in Beijing. This has been in the books for a long time. And I don't think it's the U.S. versus China. I think it's a U.S. helping China prop up to create a new world order, a Chinese world order, if you will. Utilizing the subservience of China again, and then utilizing facial recognition, cashless society. Again, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always a bank's, and you are essentially enslaved to the banking system. It's a perfect situation, folks. So when I hear about this, that sounds like a false flag. Again, I mentioned Pearl Harbor earlier. Pearl Harbor was allowed to happen. They knew it was about to happen, and they let it happen. They knew days in advance. They let it happen because they knew they could create order out of chaos, and they could also print a bunch of currency. They can arm a bunch of people. They can prop up the military-industrial complex dramatically worldwide and give untold amounts of power to the U.S. So that was really a big selling point in creating the world order that we see currently, utilizing the U.S., Israel, Britain, etc. So again, order out of chaos. It's a perfect situation. And I believe that that's exactly what we're witnessing with this preemptive news regarding the EMP attacks that are possible coming out of China on the U.S. Of course that's going to happen. Maybe not that specific issue, but it's definitely going to, there's some kind of plan at work here. There's definitely a plan at work here. And seeing these stories in the news, again, there's fear mongering. Oh, be afraid of China. Be very afraid. Oh, we might go to war with China. All that kind of stuff. That's fear mongering. However, there's truth to it. Like I said earlier, where this would be the perfect, allow something to happen so then it can look like we're at war with the country. So more people will lose their lives. You can kill a bunch of people off. A bunch of people will be more subservient to the government. They'll bow down to the state no matter what because it's patriotism. And then they will end up citizens of the Chinese global order, maybe under a different name. Probably not the most popular way to title it, but nonetheless, I believe that's probably where they're going with this. So that's why we need to be very wary. We need to call this stuff out, and we need to spread this information because you're not allowed, again, in the mainstream media to really call out China anymore. They call it racist. We're talking about a government, not a people. I feel bad for the people. They're some of the most enslaved people in the world in China. I mean, seriously. It's this massive government that was helped to be propped up by the U.S. government. And again, remember the U.S. government gave millions of dollars through Dr. Fauci's organization to do studies at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, to study coronavirus in bats as 96% similar to the novel coronavirus in order to find ways to spread it to humans as a bioweapon. It's right in the paperwork itself. That's not even a theory, it's a fact. Why was the U.S. involved in helping prop up this bioweapon in China? I mean, it hurt China initially, but then carried on to the U.S. They were able to shut down everything, push people into vast amounts of poverty. And then what do they get out of it? Well, the U.S. collapses while China comes up as a new world superpower. It's a perfect shift. And they utilize it also to utilize Chinese social credit, Chinese technocracy on U.S. citizens who otherwise wouldn't have accepted it. I mean, this conspiracy goes so deep. And I think it's pretty easy to back it up with just sound facts going back decades and decades that really prove that this is exactly where they're going with this. Most countries in the world, well, I wouldn't say most, but many countries in the world are involved. Like the IMF, China has been involved in taking over Africa. There's been the AFRICOM kind of wars against, China and the United States government over African territory, but largely China has been successful lending way more money to countries than they can afford to pay back and then taking over those countries, essentially. It's funny you see one of the heads of the Ethiopian Communist Party heading the World Health Organization that's basically backed by China and Bill Gates. I mean, this is just... At this point, it just seems so obvious to me. But when I see articles like this come up, I have to report on it because I think this is historical normalization of what we'll probably be seeing in the future. Anyway, I appreciate everyone watching. Make sure to hit that like button, check those links below, share on social media to help us get around the shadow banning, join our new newsletter at iambanned.com. Help us out any way you can. GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe. Sorry, I had to just travel into the U.S. It's been a rough couple days, and YouTube made it impossible for me to get videos up, so I apologize for that. I'm getting to work right away, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of awesome videos, interviews, and announcements, big announcements coming soon. So stay tuned. Keep tuning into World Alternative Media, and join us on Flote and BitChute. We're also on Minds and Library, so make sure to find us there as well. But more importantly than anything, seriously, Flote and BitChute, my friends. Anyway, we also take Bitcoin and all sorts of stuff. Check below just to keep us up and running because of the Chinese World Health Organization told us that YouTube basically told YouTube that we're not allowed to talk about things that are counter to their narrative. So we got demonetized, insanely censored, and it's time to really pack our bags and leave this, if you're watching this on YouTube, this terrible website and move on to the next. Anyway, appreciate everyone joining. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change. Like what you see here, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe star. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like flote.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Flote is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.